We are a few days into 2025 and I thought it was high time I set up my reading journal. As ever, I overthought it and got myself believing that I'd get into a right old muddle doing it. I don't know why I do this. My lack of self-belief astounds me at times. Mind you, sometimes it is justified. I actually, I actually did get myself into a right old muddle 3 times during the 90 minutes or so it took me to do this setup. The first 2 times were spelling mistakes, which was easy to rectify with ripped brown paper, which I really liked. But then, yeah, you guessed it. Look here. And here it's meant to say reading, and I spell it RA, another spelling mistake. So I turn the paper over and start again, and thankfully this time I really concentrated and got it right. This is the first time I've created a reading journal in January to last me the entire year. I started my very first reading journal in September 2024 and really enjoyed doing it. As a writer, sometimes I can neglect my reading, and I think it's so important that writers read. So recording the books I read by writing about them and colouring in squares really appeals to me. Speaking of squares, this is what I'm creating here, and I actually found this process a little tedious. However, what was great about it was my brain just completely shut off for a while. I was just concentrating on drawing 3 by 3 squares. I highly recommend a tedious task if you want to turn your brain off. I'm going to aim to read 80 books this year. When I did my reading journal from September to December, I managed around 5 to 6 books a month. So I am hopeful that 80 will be possible. What am I doing? Really got myself into a pickle here. And then, as you can hear, as I'm finishing my squares, I realised I'd forgotten to do enough squares across the page, and I'd got myself into a bit of a pickle. So on the previous page, each square represents a book, and it will be coloured in accordingly based on a 1 to 5 star rating. On this page, I'm specifically noting down the Agatha Christie books I read, as I'm determined to read them all as a project in chronological order. And I'll expand on that in future videos. This page is simply a list of the books, the author name and the date I read it. What I've also included is whether it's part of a series and if it's a recent book, when the next one by that author will be published. And then I'm doing here a monthly summary where I say how many books I've read that particular month and how many stars each one has been given in total. And then I'm just starting here what my January reads will be. And for each one I read, I will do a full page with a photograph of the book and what I felt about the book, including how many stars I gave it. And that's my reading journal for 2025. Thank you for being part of my journey.